All right, setting. How do you approach this? What is it? How do you look at this?
Hi, I'm Hananya Leclerc. I am a multi-genre writer who shares tips and tricks and talks about her life. Now, without further ado, let's get into the video.
So it's time to look at the setting of your book and kind of what that means and how you can approach this. Because the setting of your book is not only the location you might set your book in, so think about, you know, is it a town? Is it a city? Is it a big city? Is it a small city? Is it a small, like, tiny town? Is it a house? Is it a school? Is it a bedroom? Is it a kitchen? All of these are settings, and you can kind of dive down specific in these type of things, but also your time period might affect your setting. If you are writing, for example, in the Middle Ages, in the medieval times, versus if you're writing contemporary, that definitely changes how you approach your setting. But also the time of year can affect your setting. So if you're writing kind of in a winter setting, then it's going to be different than if you're writing in a summer setting. So those can really affect your settings and how that affects your book. So what I would say with choosing your setting is to kind of really think about, what do I need for my story? So some people might already have a specific setting in mind. If they have like, oh, I want to write about high school kids, then you are probably going to include a high school in your book as a setting. If not, then you will probably be writing about something else than the high school going-ons of these teenagers. But if you're writing kind of something like that, then you want to think about high school, or do I write from like different houses because they're all meeting up with each other at like the bedrooms and stuff, or do you have a clubhouse they go to? You kind of want to think about, what are the locations I'm going to see these characters interact in, and those are the locations that you kind of want to write down as your setting. Once you kind of have your locations down, or if maybe you don't have locations down, then the way that I would advise you to pick them is kind of go about, okay, where are my characters going to be? What are my characters actually doing? What is my story about? How does my plot look? Like, how is that going to affect kind of where I end up being? How am I going to get there? Do I have a journey? Then I'm going to probably be, you know, outside. I'm gonna have a lot of nature around me. Maybe I will have a forest that I encounter, stuff like that. If you're gonna be someone that kind of writes from one specific place, so if it's a bedroom only, or if it's, you know, like one specific house, then you kind of want to grab that as your setting. It really depends on your story that you're writing. I would recommend not grabbing too many locations and too many settings, but if that is kind of what your story requires, then definitely go for it. Then when it comes to describing your settings, so really thinking about, okay, I am at a park, then you kind of want to think about, okay, is this a park where we have certain, you know, climables or certain things that kids will play with, or is this more of a park as in like a dog walking park, or is this a park that has water, and does it have like, you know, a bridge? Is it really small? Is it really big? What do we have in this park? And you kind of want to think about that a little bit with describing your setting and how that is going to affect kind of your characters. So for example, at a bigger park and it's like a summery day, then you might have other people that are there, so you might hear background noise. You might have people, you know, playing around with a football or maybe with a soccer ball, and one of them might end up, you know, with your group. So that way you have some interactions that you can kind of write down on what might happen at parks, and if that is going to affect the way that you have your characters interact in that moment. If there is water at your park, then you might want to consider that there might be, you know, kids splashing around in the water, and those are kind of the background noises that you might be able to describe. I will recommend not writing too much description and too much about your setting. You don't want to take away from kind of the characters and also your story. I tend to be terrible at description, so that is not necessarily something that I worry about in my stories, but I've seen certain books sometimes when I'm reading and they're very description heavy, and maybe that's great for the genre, maybe that's great for other people that want to read about that, but I personally don't like a lot of description. And when I say a lot, I don't want paragraph upon paragraph upon paragraph about describing where we are at. I am someone that kind of prefers just kind of get to the action. And I will say also think about kind of what you're describing and, you know, what needs to be described Don't describe everything to the detail in your setting. So if you want to, for example, describe that you're in a park, you're on the grass and stuff like that, that is completely fine. If you want to describe like a little bit of background noise, or you know, you have playing kids, like stuff like that, that is completely fine. I'm not saying that you can't describe certain things. I'm just saying that you don't have to describe every single, you know, piece of grass that you're sitting on top of. Like, that is not necessary. I would say just pick out a couple things and describe that, and then move on. Kind of describe what is going to affect your story, or what you might, you know, feel like is going to bring your story more to life. But I want to make sure that you kind of prevent the pages upon pages of description. I also kind of want to touch upon right room syndrome, which is kind of something that I tend to do a little bit, which is not describing anything that's in the room, or not describing the room at all, which is what I had originally when I was writing my historical book, and then I ended up going through it again and actually writing down some things that was description wise, or that kind of described the room a little bit in a way that makes it so that you can actually touch it a little bit without me writing pages upon pages, but also without me saying, oh yeah, we're in a bedroom. Have fun imagining that. That ties into what I said before. Just kind of pick like a couple things that you describe. So for example, if you walk into a room, what are the first things that you notice is like a good kind of strategy of approaching certain settings, and how to write about that, and how to write it down in a descriptive way. So if, for example, you walk into a bedroom, one of the first things that you're probably going to notice is the bed, because that's mostly the thing that, you know, is in a bedroom. So you're probably going to notice a bed, you might notice a nightstand, or you might notice something that is on a nightstand, or you might notice something that's on their windowsill, or like something like that. Just a couple little details here and there that are gonna kind of also bring personality into your characters. So if you're describing something that's personal to this person, right? So if it's a bedroom, or if it's a house, or if it's, you know, a certain room or certain space that is very much so a reflection of this person, you kind of want to make sure that you have those tiny kind of characteristics of your character also in there. So that's definitely something that I need to do way better. But when I'm describing, for example, a bedroom, I want to make sure that I also give little hints of like that person's personality in what they have on their walls, or what they have on their like nightstand as like a little decoration, or like stuff like that, to kind of show, oh, this person really likes this, or this person really likes that, to kind of maybe refer back to that at some point throughout the book. But yeah, those are kind of things that I could say on how to approach a setting. If you're, you know, grabbing a setting that's personal to someone, then, you know, sprinkle in those little tiny personal things. If you're someone that struggles with describing your setting and is kind of a little bit like me in that sense, then I have actually 2 books that I ended up buying that are kind of useful for that. So I have the urban setting and the rural setting thesaurus, and these kind of really go into different places that you might be describing. So as you can see, I have tons of little stickies on this one that will help me kind of describe certain things. I have one of these, for example, and then it goes into what you can see there, what you can hear there, what you can smell there, taste, some textures that you might feel. So if you're walking, or, you know, crawling, or like something like that, or if it's the wall that you might feel on the wall, stuff like that. And then also possible sources of conflict are usually outlined in this. People are commonly there related to other settings that you might find in the same book. And then you also have some notes and tips and tricks on how to approach this, and then some examples. So it really goes into each setting kind of specifically, and what you can kind of expect when you're there as a character. So I really do like these. I refer to these quite often now when I'm writing something for the first time, or when I'm doing a self-edit on it and I'm trying to add a little bit more description in certain places. I tend to refer to these quite often to kind of get an initial sense of, okay, this is what I'm trying to describe. These are some of the things that I can potentially write in, and I draw inspirations from these books. I don't copy paste whatever they say in here, but I draw inspiration from these on like how they approach certain things, or if they say, oh yeah, you can hear maybe, you know, like bugs, I'm like, oh yeah, maybe I can do, you know, a little mosquito flying around or something like that. Those are kind of the inspirations I draw from these books. So definitely would recommend, if you're struggling with this, get these. I thought that they were very helpful for me at least, so they might help you as well. That's all I have for you in this video. I hope this was helpful for you. If so, then please consider leaving a like on this video to let me know that this was a video that you enjoyed. And if you have any more questions that you want to ask about this, about settings and how you can best approach it, then leave them down in the comments. If you have other questions about writing your book, also leave them down in the comments. I tend to reply to all of my comments. I might be a little bit slow sometimes, but I do reply to all of them. I make sure to get through them at some point. And if you're not subscribed already, please consider subscribing to this channel if you enjoy this content. And hopefully that means I will be seeing you in the next videos.